In a galaxy on the brink of war, two destinies collide. A diplomat with a mysterious past and an intergalactic peace envoy hold the key to an ancient prophecy that could unite warring species or destroy them all. What secrets lie behind their seemingly chance encounter? And can love bloom amidst the chaos of interstellar conflict? Subscribe now to uncover the truth about the star-crossed alliance. The stars outside the observation deck painted abstract patterns against the darkness of space, but Robert Chambers barely noticed their beauty. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the metal railing as he reviewed his briefing documents one final time. The Kantari Collective had proven resistant to all previous diplomatic overtures, their warrior culture seemingly incompatible with peaceful coexistence. Yet here he stood, Earth's latest emissary to this volatile species. The sound of approaching footsteps drew his attention from the datapad. Turning, he found himself face to face with the most extraordinary being he'd ever encountered. Her presence commanded the room without effort, silver white hair cascading down her shoulders, eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of countless civilizations, and an aura of quiet authority that made his practiced diplomatic poise waver momentarily. "Ambassador Chambers," she said, her voice carrying the melodic cadence of someone who had spoken 1,000 languages. "I am Isabella, your appointed guide from the Galactic Peace Corps." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of recognition that neither could quite place. As she extended her hand in formal greeting, Robert felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as though they had danced this particular measure before, in some distant past life among the stars. The Kantari ship loomed ahead, its jagged silhouette cutting through the void like a predator's teeth. Robert adjusted his formal jacket, feeling the weight of his mission pressing against his chest. Beside him, Isabella moved with fluid grace, her ceremonial robes shimmering with constellations that seemed to shift and realign as she walked. "Remember," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the hum of the shuttle's engines, "the Kantari value strength above all else. But they also honor those who speak truth without fear." Her words carried more weight than standard diplomatic advice. There was a knowing quality to her tone that made Robert wonder just how many times she had walked this particular path. The shuttle docked with a gentle shudder, and the airlock hissed open to reveal their Kantari escorts, towering figures with obsidian skin that caught the light in unexpected ways, their eyes glowing with an inner fire that spoke of ancient power. As they stepped into the Kantari vessel, Robert couldn't help but notice how the warrior's gaze lingered on Isabella, their postures subtly shifting from aggressive to respectful. It was as if they recognized something in her that he had yet to fully comprehend. The corridors stretched before them like living veins, pulsing with energy that resonated through the soles of their feet. "They're testing us," Isabella whispered, her lips barely moving. "Every step we take is being measured, every breath analyzed." Robert nodded imperceptibly, falling into step beside her as they approached the chamber where negotiations would begin. The walls seemed to breathe around them, organic and alive, and he realized with growing unease that this wasn't merely a ship, it was a living entity, grown rather than built. The implications sent a shiver down his spine as they entered the council chamber, where the gathered Kantari leaders awaited them with expressions that balanced curiosity and barely contained hostility. The council chamber pulsed with an energy that made Robert's skin prickle, the bioluminescent patterns adorning the walls casting ever-shifting shadows across the gathered Kantari. He took his seat at the central table, acutely aware of Isabella's presence beside him, her calm demeanor providing an anchor in the sea of alien intensity surrounding them. The lead Kantari, War Chief Varnock, regarded them with eyes that burned like twin suns, his voice resonating through the chamber like rolling thunder when he finally spoke. "Why should we listen to another round of empty promises from your kind?" Varnock's question hung heavy in the air, and Robert felt the weight of countless failed negotiations bearing down upon him. Before he could respond, Isabella leaned forward slightly, her movement drawing every eye in the room. "Because this time," she said, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to still the very air, "we bring not just words, but understanding." The Kantari shifted uncomfortably, their organic throne-like seats responding to their movements with subtle creaks and groans. Robert watched as Isabella produced a small crystal from her robes, placing it gently on the table between them. It immediately began projecting holographic images, scenes from Kentari history, moments of triumph and loss that resonated deeply with their warrior culture. The gathered leaders exchanged glances, their expressions softening slightly. "These are our records," Varnock acknowledged grudgingly. "But how do you possess them?" "We don't just possess them," Isabella continued, her eyes meeting each Kentari in turn. "We understand their significance. We see the pattern beneath the battles, the purpose behind your struggles." Robert marveled at her insight, realizing that she was weaving a narrative that transcended mere diplomacy. She was speaking to something fundamental in Kentari nature, touching upon their deepest values in ways that no other negotiator had attempted. The air seemed charged with possibility as the council members began to lean forward, their interest palpable. As the initial tension began to ease, Robert found himself observing the subtle dance between Isabella and the Kentari Council with growing fascination. There was an artistry to her approach that went beyond standard diplomatic protocols. She seemed to anticipate their reactions before they occurred, adjusting her strategy with intuitive precision. When Varnock's second-in-command, Commander Trailis, challenged their motives with a particularly pointed question, Isabella didn't hesitate. She recounted a specific battle from Kentari history, not just the facts but the emotional resonance behind it, demonstrating an understanding that left the council visibly shaken. Robert noticed how she occasionally glanced at him during these exchanges, her eyes conveying messages that seemed to bypass words entirely. It was as if they were developing their own language, one that existed in the spaces between formal discourse. The longer they engaged with the council, the more apparent it became that Isabella possessed knowledge that shouldn't have been possible. She referenced ancient treaties and forgotten alliances, speaking of events that predated even the oldest Kentari records. Yet when questioned about her sources, she would simply smile enigmatically and redirect the conversation. During a break in proceedings, Robert finally voiced his curiosity. "How do you know so much about them?" he asked as they stood by the chamber's organic window, watching the stars stretch and warp through the ship's gravitational field. Isabella turned to him, her expression both amused and guarded. "Let's just say I've had extensive experience with warrior cultures." Her evasive answer only deepened the mystery surrounding her, but before Robert could press further, the council reconvened, pulling them back into the delicate web of negotiation. The days blurred together in a haze of intense discussions and careful diplomacy, each session building upon the last like layers of crystalline structure. Robert found himself increasingly drawn to Isabella's methodology, which combined elements of psychological warfare with genuine cultural appreciation in ways that defied conventional wisdom. She had an uncanny ability to identify the underlying currents of Kentari politics, often steering conversations toward topics that revealed hidden fractures within their leadership. One evening, as they reviewed holographic maps of proposed trade routes, Robert noticed something peculiar. Isabella's hands moved in patterns that echoed the bioluminescent displays of the Kentari ship itself. When he commented on it, she froze momentarily before continuing her explanation, but not before he caught a glimpse of something akin to panic in her eyes. "Old habits die hard," she muttered, almost to herself. Their personal dynamic evolved alongside the negotiations, shifting from professional detachment to something more complex. During shared meals in the ship's organic dining hall, where walls pulsed with muted colors and food synthesized itself from nutrient pods, they began exchanging stories from their respective backgrounds. Isabella spoke of distant worlds and ancient civilizations with such vivid detail that Robert half suspected she had lived through them personally. Yet whenever he tried to pin her down on specifics, she would artfully change the subject, redirecting the conversation towards safer territory. The Kentari themselves seemed increasingly fascinated by their interactions, often pausing mid-negotiation to observe the subtle interplay between human diplomat and galactic envoy. Varnock, in particular, watched them with an intensity that suggested he understood more than he let on, his glowing eyes tracking their every move with calculating precision. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during what was supposed to be a routine cultural exchange session. The Kentari had invited them to witness a traditional combat ritual, a display of martial prowess that doubled as spiritual ceremony. As the warriors moved through their intricate patterns, weapons tracing arcs of light through the air, Robert felt Isabella stiffen beside him. Her breathing quickened imperceptibly, and when he glanced at her, he saw something remarkable. The silver-white strands of her hair seemed to lift slightly, as if responding to an unseen current. The Kentari audience fell silent, their attention fixed not on the fighters, but on Isabella. Even Varnock rose from his position, his massive frame casting long shadows across the arena floor. "You recognize this," he stated, his voice carrying through the suddenly still chamber. Isabella's response was barely audible. "It's older than you know." The revelation hung in the air like static electricity, charging the atmosphere with unspoken implications. Robert watched as the Kentari leader approached them, his movements unusually deliberate. "Our legends speak of a bridge between species," Varnock intoned, his glowing eyes locked onto Isabella. "A being who would appear when our people stood at the crossroads of destruction or unity." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop as realization dawned on Robert. All the strange coincidences, the impossible knowledge, the way Isabella seemed to understand the Kentari on a level that transcended simple study, it all pointed to something far greater than either of them had admitted. When Varnock reached out to touch Isabella's shoulder, a visible shockwave rippled through the air, causing the very structure of the ship to resonate with harmonic frequencies. The assembled Kentari dropped to one knee in unison, their weapons clattering to the floor as they chanted in their ancient tongue. Through the chaos, Robert caught Isabella's gaze, seeing in her eyes both confirmation and apology. As the echoes of the Kentari chant faded, Isabella turned to Robert, her expression a mixture of resignation and determination. "There's something you need to understand," she began, leading him to a secluded balcony overlooking the ship's central core. The organic structure pulsed around them like a living heart. "The legends Varnock mentioned, they're not just Kentari myths. They're part of a larger tapestry, one that spans multiple galaxies and countless generations." She paused, collecting her thoughts as the bioluminescent patterns played across her features. Long before recorded history, there were beings who walked among the stars, serving as bridges between species on the verge of either annihilation or enlightenment. These intermediaries were created through a fusion of genetic material from different races, designed to embody the best qualities of each. Her voice grew softer, more intimate. "When I said I had extensive experience with warrior cultures, I wasn't just referring to my training. I carry aspects of dozens of species within me, including—" She hesitated, then finished, "including yours." Robert felt the ground shift beneath his feet, not literally, but in terms of everything he thought he knew about his companion. "The reason we work so well together isn't coincidence. Your genetic lineage contains traces of the same ancient program that created me. That's why you feel this connection, why you understand things about me that others might miss." The revelation hit him like a solar flare, illuminating patterns he hadn't consciously registered, the way their thoughts often aligned, how they anticipated each other's moves in negotiations, the electric charge that accompanied their physical proximity. "Does this mean?" he started to ask, but she cut him off with a gentle shake of her head. "It means we have a choice to make. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy or walk away from destiny. But either path will require sacrifices neither of us can fully comprehend yet." The following days passed in a blur of heightened awareness, every interaction between Robert and Isabella charged with new meaning. During negotiations, they found themselves instinctively anticipating not just each other's strategies, but also the Kentari responses, their combined intuition creating a flow of dialogue that seemed almost choreographed. Varnock and his council watched with growing respect, their initial skepticism giving way to something approaching reverence. In quieter moments, when they retreated to their quarters aboard the organic ship, their conversations delved deeper into philosophical territory. Isabella explained how similar prophecies existed across numerous cultures, each describing a union that would transcend biological limitations and create something entirely new. "It's not just about genetics," she confided one evening as they observed the ship's neural network processing their diplomatic progress. "The ancient ones understood that true unity requires more than compatible DNA. It demands shared experiences, mutual growth, and the willingness to sacrifice individual identity for something greater." Robert found himself struggling with the implications. His entire career had been built on maintaining clear boundaries between personal and professional relationships. Yet here he stood, faced with the possibility that his very existence had been shaped by forces beyond human understanding. The Centauri, sensing the shift in dynamics, began incorporating elements of their own mythology into the negotiations. They spoke of celestial alignments that marked significant turning points in their history, of star patterns that predicted moments of transformation. Isabella listened with rapt attention, occasionally adding insights that made the Centauri elders exchange meaningful glances. During one particularly intense session, Commander Tralles presented an ancient artifact, a crystalline sphere that pulsed with rhythmic light. When Isabella touched it, the patterns accelerated, forming constellations that mirrored both human and Centauri astrology. "The signs align," Varnock declared, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "The time has come for the prophecy to unfold." As the negotiations reached their critical phase, an unexpected complication arose from within the Centauri ranks. A faction led by Subcommander Kale, known for their resistance to any form of alliance with lesser species, began challenging every agreement they reached. Their arguments carried weight among the warrior caste, threatening to unravel weeks of careful diplomacy. Robert watched with growing concern as Isabella engaged these dissenters, her approach evolving into something more confrontational, yet strangely compassionate. She didn't argue against their beliefs, but rather embraced them, acknowledging the validity of their concerns while presenting alternative perspectives. During one particularly heated exchange, Kale accused Isabella of manipulating sacred prophecies for political gain. Instead of defending herself, she requested permission to demonstrate their shared heritage. With Varnock's approval, she guided the council to an ancient chamber deep within the ship's core, where living walls displayed the genetic history of the Centauri people. As she activated the chamber's memory systems, holographic strands of DNA began weaving through the air, connecting patterns that span millennia. "Your ancestors weren't just warriors," she explained, her voice resonating through the chamber. "They were explorers, scientists, philosophers. They sought to understand other species, not to conquer them, but to learn and grow." The display showed how Centauri DNA had naturally incorporated elements from various species they had encountered, suggesting an evolutionary predisposition toward integration rather than isolation. Kale and his followers watched in silence as the evidence mounted, their rigid stances gradually softening. Robert observed how Isabella carefully integrated these revelations into their diplomatic framework, using scientific fact to support spiritual belief. She proposed a phased integration program that honored Centauri traditions while embracing interspecies cooperation, each step backed by historical precedent and biological compatibility studies. The turning point came when she introduced a concept called genetic resonance, the idea that certain species naturally harmonize at a cellular level, creating opportunities for profound understanding and cooperation. Using advanced imaging technology, she demonstrated how human and Centauri biology complemented each other in ways that went beyond simple genetic similarity. The visualizations showed potential pathways for medical advancement, technological innovation, and cultural enrichment that could benefit both species exponentially. The atmosphere aboard the Centauri vessel shifted dramatically as acceptance of their shared destiny spread through the ranks. Warriors who had once regarded Robert with suspicion now sought his counsel on human customs, while technical specialists worked closely with Isabella to develop implementation protocols for their proposed alliance. Negotiations transformed from formal sessions into collaborative workshops, with mixed teams tackling specific challenges ranging from trade agreements to cultural exchange programs. Robert found himself spending increasing amounts of time with Isabella, their partnership evolving into something that defied simple categorization. During late-night strategy sessions, They developed a shorthand that bordered on telepathic, finishing each other's sentences and anticipating needs before they were expressed. The Kantari noticed this growing connection, with Varnock often observing their interactions with an expression that mixed satisfaction and something akin to nostalgia. One evening, as they walked through the ship's observation deck, where the walls had begun to display images from both human and Kantari history, Isabella stopped suddenly, her hand reaching out to grasp Robert's arm. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, her eyes scanning the patterns emerging on the organic surfaces around them. The air seemed charged with possibility, the ship itself responding to their presence with increased bioluminescence. Without conscious decision, their fingers intertwined, and a wave of understanding washed over them, memories not their own flooding their consciousness. They saw glimpses of ancient ceremonies where representatives from different species had joined in symbolic unions, witnessed the birth of hybrid civilizations that had flourished for millennia. The experience left them breathless, standing in the middle of the corridor as Kantari crew members respectfully gave them space. "This is what they've been waiting for," Isabella said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Not just an alliance, but a demonstration that our species can truly become something greater together." Robert nodded, realizing that their relationship had transcended personal attraction or professional partnership. They had become living proof of the prophecy's validity. The formal signing ceremony took place in the heart of the Kantari vessel, within a chamber that seemed to pulse with anticipation. The organic walls had rearranged themselves overnight, forming an intricate lattice of living architecture that incorporated symbols from both human and Kantari cultures. As Robert and Isabella approached the central platform, they could feel the eyes of hundreds of Kantari warriors upon them, their glowing gazes filled with a mixture of awe and expectation. Varnock stood waiting, flanked by his council, holding the ceremonial quill that would seal their agreement. But before the official proceedings could begin, something unprecedented occurred. The ship's neural network activated spontaneously, bathing the chamber in waves of multicolored light that formed patterns reminiscent of ancient star charts. From these patterns emerged holographic representations of historical figures, human explorers, Kantari warriors, and shadowy figures that seemed to belong to neither species, yet somehow to both. The apparitions moved through the chamber, reenacting pivotal moments from both civilizations' histories, culminating in a vision of Robert and Isabella standing exactly where they were now. The gathered assembly fell silent as the projections merged into a single image, a stylized representation of their intertwined DNA, spinning slowly in the air like a cosmic dance. "This is more than a treaty," Varnock announced, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "This is the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history." As Robert and Isabella stepped forward to sign the document, they did so not just as representatives of their respective species, but as embodiments of a prophecy fulfilled. The moment their signatures appeared on the living parchment, the ship responded with a symphony of harmonic frequencies that resonated through every deck. Outside the viewports, stars seemed to align in patterns that matched the prophecy's descriptions, while within the chamber, flowers of light blossomed from the walls, showering the participants with iridescent petals that dissolved into pure energy upon contact. The Kantari warriors, typically stoic and reserved, openly wept as they witnessed the manifestation of their most sacred beliefs. Even the dissenters, led by Kale, lowered their heads in acknowledgement of something greater than their individual convictions. In the weeks following the historic agreement, Robert and Isabella found themselves navigating uncharted territory both professionally and personally. The Kantari, true to their warrior nature, approached their new alliance with military precision, implementing integration protocols faster than anyone had anticipated. Joint task forces formed overnight, combining human ingenuity with Kantari tactical expertise to tackle challenges ranging from asteroid mining operations to deep space exploration missions. Yet amidst this whirlwind of activity, Robert and Isabella carved out moments of solitude, retreating to hidden alcoves within the living ship where the walls seemed to close around them protectively, creating private sanctuaries bathed in soft, responsive light. During these times, They explored the depths of their connection, discovering abilities that defied conventional understanding. When they touched, information flowed between them, not just thoughts or emotions, but complete sensory experiences, memories that belonged to neither of them individually, but somehow to both. They could feel the texture of ancient stone from planets neither had visited, taste flavors of foods that didn't exist in their current forms, hear music composed in frequencies beyond normal perception. The Kantari regarded these developments with reverence, believing they were witnessing the emergence of a new type of being, one that embodied the best qualities of both species while transcending their limitations. Varnock assigned a team of scholars to document their evolution, capturing every nuance of their transformation in detailed records that would become part of Kantari's sacred texts. As their abilities grew, so did their responsibilities. Requests for mediation poured in from other star systems, each hoping to benefit from their unique perspective and enhanced diplomatic skills. The Galactic Peace Corps, initially skeptical of Isabella's unconventional methods, now viewed her partnership with Robert as a model for future ambassadorial assignments. Together, they developed new protocols for interspecies relations, incorporating elements from both human psychology and Kantari warrior philosophy to create approaches that proved remarkably effective across diverse civilizations. The universe seemed to take notice of their success, presenting them with challenges that tested the limits of their newfound abilities. A crisis erupted in the Vega system, where three species teetered on the brink of war over disputed resources. The situation demanded immediate intervention, and Robert and Isabella found themselves thrust into their most demanding assignment yet. As they approached the conflict zone aboard a newly commissioned hybrid vessel, a testament to human Kantari engineering collaboration, they discovered their connection had evolved further. The ship itself responded to their presence, its systems adapting seamlessly to their combined commands as if anticipating their needs before they were expressed. During the initial negotiations, they employed their enhanced communication abilities to simultaneously address multiple parties, translating not just language but cultural nuances and emotional subtext with unprecedented accuracy. When tempers flared, they could project calming frequencies through the conference chamber, their synchronized brainwaves generating fields that helped prevent escalation. The mediator role required them to maintain strict impartiality, yet their shared consciousness sometimes made objective judgment difficult. They experienced flashes of each species' perspective so vividly that remaining detached became a constant struggle. At one point, during a particularly heated exchange, Isabella unconsciously projected her empathy too strongly, causing all parties to temporarily share each other's pain and fears. While this forced moment of understanding ultimately helped resolve the conflict, it highlighted the need for better control over their developing powers. Back aboard their home vessel, they began working with Kantari specialists to refine their abilities. The warrior race had extensive experience with mental disciplines, and their techniques proved invaluable in helping Robert and Isabella establish boundaries while maintaining their enhanced capabilities. They learned to modulate their influence, to direct their shared consciousness with surgical precision, and to shield themselves from overwhelming emotional input during tense situations. These training sessions revealed additional layers to their connection. They could now perceive not just surface thoughts but underlying motivations, could sense the truth behind diplomatic posturing, and identify hidden agendas with remarkable accuracy. The Kantari documented these developments with religious fervor, their scholars noting how each challenge they faced seemed to trigger new evolutionary leaps in their abilities. As months turned into years, Robert and Isabella's legend spread throughout the galaxy, their names becoming synonymous with successful diplomacy and interspecies harmony. The Kantari, once feared isolationists, had transformed into enthusiastic proponents of unity, their warrior culture adapting to incorporate principles of peaceful coexistence without sacrificing their core values. Other species, inspired by their example, began seeking similar partnerships, leading to an unprecedented era of galactic cooperation. The original prophecy, once dismissed as myth, now served as a template for understanding the potential latent in all intelligent species. Robert and Isabella found themselves at the center of a growing movement, their unique bond spawning academic research, artistic interpretations, and even new religious movements across multiple civilizations. Scholars study their physiology, documenting how their bodies continued to evolve, developing new neural pathways and organ functions that defied conventional biology. Artists captured their essence in various mediums, from holographic sculptures that changed form based on viewer perspective to symphonies that incorporated frequencies only they could fully appreciate. Yet despite their growing fame, they remained grounded in their mission, continuing to mediate conflicts and forge alliances throughout known space. Their hybrid vessel, now equipped with technology that responded directly to their combined consciousness, became a mobile embassy of sorts, its living walls displaying constellations from every species they helped unite. The Centauri maintained a special relationship with them, viewing their success as validation of their most sacred beliefs. Varnock, having stepped down from active leadership, devoted his remaining years to chronicling their achievements, his writings becoming foundational texts for a new school of diplomatic thought that emphasized biological compatibility and spiritual resonance. Even former dissenters like Kale had come full circle, now serving as ambassadors for their new philosophy of unity through diversity. The ripple effects of their work manifested in unexpected ways. Medical breakthroughs resulting from shared biological research, technological innovations born from combined engineering approaches, and cultural exchanges that enriched every participating civilization. Entire star systems underwent transformations as species previously divided by mistrust found common ground through the framework established by Robert and Isabella's example. Looking back on their journey, Robert and Isabella realized that their greatest achievement wasn't the treaties signed or the conflicts resolved, but the fundamental shift in galactic consciousness they had helped catalyze. Species that had spent millennia regarding each other with suspicion now saw potential partners in evolution, understanding that their differences represented opportunities for growth rather than barriers to overcome. The prophecy that had once seemed like destiny had transformed into something far more powerful, a self-fulfilling vision of unity that continued to inspire generations. Their own relationship had evolved beyond anything either had imagined possible, their individual identities merging into a harmonious whole while maintaining distinct characteristics. They could communicate entire concepts with a glance, anticipate each other's needs with perfect accuracy, and draw upon shared memories that spanned both their original lifetimes and their new, combined existence. The Centauri regarded them as living proof that their most cherished beliefs had merit, while humanity celebrated them as pioneers of a new era in interspecies relations. As they stood together on the observation deck of their vessel, watching stars being born in a nearby nebula, they knew their work was far from complete. New challenges would arise, different species would require unique approaches, and the delicate balance they had helped establish would need constant nurturing. Yet they faced the future with confidence, knowing they had created a foundation strong enough to support whatever came next. The living ship around them pulsed with contentment, its organic structure having grown and adapted alongside them, now serving as both home and symbol of everything they had achieved together. Through the viewport, they watched as a new generation of diplomats, human, Centauri, and hybrid, prepared for their first joint mission, carrying forward the legacy of unity that had started with a single prophecy and two individuals brave enough to embrace their destined roles. As the stars stretched and warped through the viewport, painting constellations of infinite possibility, they knew their story would continue to inspire across galaxies and through generations, proving that even in the vastness of space, connections could form that transcended mere diplomacy, connections that could change the very fabric of galactic society. If you enjoyed this tale of interstellar diplomacy and destined connections, subscribe now to explore more stories where science fiction meets profound human experiences.